DreamWorks, man, what happened? Ever since 2022, DreamWorks started a basically renaissance for people having faith in the company again. After that, everyone was anticipating the new films that would come out for DreamWorks. And ever since Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and all that hype dying down, all the films that followed after, how do I put this without making it offensive? Mid! Now, don't get me wrong, I think a lot of people take the word mid and say that the movie's terrible. And that's not the case. Mid is just mediocre. It's not great, nor is it that bad either. And, after a crazy movie like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, everything kinda went down with these two movies. And then the hype train went up again for DreamWorks with Kung Fu Panda 4. Then we had a really bad splat with Megamind versus the Doom Syndicate, which is a whole thing on its own. Then Kung Fu Panda 4 came around, and I'm pretty sure you've seen all the reviews all across YouTube and just the rest of the internet. They're not great, and if there are some, it's kind of the same story. It's just mediocre. And DreamWorks just has one big problem that people tend to overlook and kind of denied back when the DreamWorks hype train was going. DreamWorks' inconsistency. DreamWorks has some bangers like How to Train Your Dragon, Shrek, the original Megamind. And in between those cracks, you got movies like The Bee Movie, Turbo, Boss Baby. You get my drift. Like, DreamWorks can cook when it wants to, but majority of the time it just sleeps, and then when it feels like, okay, hold on, let's make an Oscar-nominated film, then it decides to go out and go all out with it. And it seems like that might be the case this year as well. So far, DreamWorks has had a pretty year so far, and this being its 30th anniversary, but the film that I think I'm really hoping they don't mess this up, is The Wild Robot that releases this September. And that film so far looks phenomenal. There's amazing talent behind it. There's amazing directors and writers and producers behind this. I really hope that this movie just saves what's going on this year with DreamWorks right now. But all in all, DreamWorks has a big problem with inconsistency. And, well, let's take a step back and go back to 2023, where we were. Well, Puss in Boots 2 was the big thing everyone on the internet was talking about. All the death edits, all the theories and evaluations of characters and themes, and the endless flow of panic attack memes. Then, after that, we finally got our first trailer in March for Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken. Really, really late, which probably should have given us the idea of how this was gonna go. A lot of people, initially, really, really liked this movie. And, well, this was mostly people writing off of the DreamWorks is better than Disney now, Disney sucks, and all those other memes and all those other comparisons and all those videos. A lot of people were just saying that DreamWorks was gonna outclass Disney and everything. Everyone was comparing Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken to the Little Mermaid remake that was releasing a month before it. And the movie came out, and yeah, sorry to break it to you, Ruby, but nobody saw this movie. I'm sorry, there were crickets in my theater when I saw this movie. There was like 3 other people that saw this movie, and it seemed like those were the people that were, hyping this movie up only because it was like a DreamWorks versus Disney movie. Oh, this was gonna be better. And the faces they had when they walked out were like kinda disappointed, and I could see why. Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken is not a bad movie, it's just a movie that had so much potential, and they went for the very, very bare minimum for it, and it just kind of fell flat for me. Sure, there's places this franchise can go, but as of now, it's kind of dead on impact at this point. But who knows? Then we have Trolls. Yeah, I know. Let's just get it out of our systems. Trolls is the next cash cow next to Boss Baby with DreamWorks. Ever since How to Train Your Dragon, Shrek, and all the other big franchises from DreamWorks went dormant after their franchises kinda concluded, the next big thing for DreamWorks was Boss Baby and Trolls, specifically Trolls, since this movie did really well the first time around, and the second movie was, put on streaming, but the third movie was a movie that Universal suddenly woke up and started marketing this movie. Gee, I wonder why. And for this movie, it also just turned out mediocre. Don't get me wrong, this movie has its funny moments, and I could say some of the characters are enjoyable to watch, but that at the same time, it is a Trolls movie, and it's nothing really more than that, and that movie was just okay, pretty much the definition of mid. And then, once we saw how its box office performance went, yeah, that's not the last we're gonna see of Trolls, because it did much better than Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken. It even was beating out Wish for the time being, but then I guess Wish started moving at a faster pace towards the end of its run. That was a little weird. But Trolls Band Together and Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken were not the best way to 2023 to go out with DreamWorks. It was kind of just a mediocre year for it after Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. But people had strong hopes for 2024. And how did it go? Yup, we all know the horrors, but Megamind versus the Doom Syndicate. Now, I'm not going to talk about this movie much, because I've already talked about it in a previous video, but all in all, it's probably the worst DreamWorks movie DreamWorks has ever made. And this came technically from their television division, which really needs to stop. DreamWorks has a pattern of dropping all these series and sometimes movies that are just straight to streaming or DVD that just end up being horrible, and this is one of them. And honestly, I don't even think I can consider this a sequel. It's basically just a pilot for a show that they were going to also put on Peacock. That's why they came out on the same day. So I really can't consider this a sequel at all. This is just horrible. The animation is terrible. Will Ferrell and the rest of the cast doesn't even return. It's just a shameless cash grab that you can see that they put no effort into, and it's just insane. A lot of people hate watched it, which gave us a season 2, so there's an L on that, but that was not the greatest of start for DreamWorks, and everyone had their eyes set on Kung Fu Panda after that. We would see that Kung Fu Panda 4 is coming out a week after, so everyone was like, okay, we're gonna have peak after this, DreamWorks is gonna make up for this, and, well... yeah, the movie didn't really live up to the hype everyone had for it. Now, don't get me wrong, Kung Fu Panda 4 is not a terrible movie. It's not even really, like, I can consider it mid. It's just an okay movie. It has good qualities to it, it's just what they were going for with this movie could have been expanded upon so much more. Like, first of all, the biggest problem everyone had, where is the Furious 5? That was just a big piece of the Kung Fu Panda franchise that you just snapped out of existence. And on top of that, you just bring back the villains only for like 5 minutes in the entire movie. This was the movie everyone was hyping up, and when everyone walked out, they kind of felt kind of cheated, and felt like that wasn't what they were supposed to be given with this movie.
You were the chosen one! It was said that you would destroy this Sith, not join them!
And I think a lot of people can agree, the Chameleon just didn't live up to what the other villains had. She wasn't that great of a villain. The only devious thing she did in the movie was push someone down the stairs. That's nothing compared to Tai Lung, Shen, and Kai. As much as crap Kai gets compared to Shen and Tai Lung, he brought way more of a force than the Chameleon ever did. So, the action scenes in this movie were probably the best out of the franchise. I can give it that, because they got stunt actors as references for this movie, so you can see why the fight scenes are really nicely choreographed. but that's it. Other than that, the movie itself just is a good movie, but it's just not a good Kung Fu Panda movie compared to the other ones. So, it's not bad, nor is it great. That's kind of how I feel on the movie. And that's where these other movies also fill in. Joel's Band Together, not a horrible movie, but it was just okay. Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken, it wasn't terrible, but it just had a lot of potential that they went for the bare minimum of. I didn't even talk about the movie that came out in February, Orion in the Dark. I talked about it a little earlier, but after the rewatch, the movie kind of fell apart in the third act. But I'm not going to get into too much of that, a lot of people have talked about that already. But the 30th anniversary of DreamWorks is upon us this year. The Wild Robot seems like that's the next DreamWorks movie for the rest of the year. And I have really good hopes that that movie will turn out good. Some people are saying the movie might not have dialogue, which I will really like, but it seems like it won't, based on what I've heard on the books. But there's a lot of great talent, there's a great director behind it, and writers and everything. I think this will be the movie that, will get praise, maybe even an Oscar nomination. But the whole general thing I wanted to talk about in today's video was that people need to understand DreamWorks has been an inconsistent studio for a very long time. They can drop bangers and they can just drop mid or sometimes bad movies. And everyone were thinking that they were going to be the next big studio to drop masterpiece after masterpiece. And that just wasn't the case. So, all in all, DreamWorks is okay where it's at. Kung Fu Panda is doing really well right now. But I think going forward, people shouldn't expect DreamWorks to be dropping masterpieces back to back now. It's just not how it goes. But what did you guys think of Kung Fu Panda 4 and just the rest of these movies? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace out.